Welcome back to American Zarathustra, the mini-series of video critiques of my old art that I did years ago, with the hope or the notion or the struggle to take what I've learned and what I've done in the past and move it more towards an art for white well-being. So this piece is much more traditional, minus my my Chinese name down there in the corner. A lot of the work that I've shown has some abstraction to it or is surreal. This goes back to more just the straight pictorial form. Uh, I find nudity and the human figure is really essential to Western art, whereas the the landscape is very much an Eastern thing in art. So pardon my lack of grace in explaining these things. But, and this is not a traditional Chinese landscape. This is definitely more Western in approach, although I'm using Eastern materials. So I've never, my whole, how do I say, when I studied Japanese and Chinese painting in Asia, I wasn't trying to become Japanese or Chinese or Asian, but rather to experience the spirit and the depth of their work and then take that someplace. So, but at the same time, I've never ever, I don't know, I've never been ashamed of, I've always been proud of my Western heritage. So, you know, I've never not tried to be that. In a sense, though, I'm kind of traversing the borderline between these two worlds. And you can see that as you look at my other work and look at this video in context to those other videos. So what is this about? What's the theme here? Is this a good work of art? I think there's an interesting compositional pattern here where the eye kind of reads across the work like so. Foreground, middle ground, background. The concept here was really meant to say something about relationships, emotional, how do I put this? This man, as I saw him, is meant to kind of look half dead, that he may be washed up ashore. His skin tone is a little weird. It's just, you know, he looks, I think, almost to be sleeping. There's this kind of a peace, a restfulness, a loving affection that he has for the woman, you know, whom he desires. But yet the woman is turned away from him. Her affections are more towards this dog, this animal, which seems to watch over her in some sense. It's alert and aware, and this feeling of rejection is a kind of a theme here. There's a dynamic between these three characters that, and then of course the nudity and the, I think water to some extent is a sort of psycho-spiritual sexual symbol. sorry for the alliteration. You know, the forest, I think perhaps, for me anyway, maybe represents depth, depth of feeling, depth of thought, history, relationships between things. These two trees in the foreground, no, they're really in the middle ground, you know, with that kind of reddish tone. Well, he's a little more of an orangish red. That's like maybe more of a rose red in these trees. Perhaps that, you know, echoes the two figures in this piece. I guess I find it interesting that the shape of the rocks sort of mimic the shape of the dog's head in some way too. There's a great deal of contrast in tone, light and dark. I don't think the piece is very deep. It's kind of a simple poem. I guess you could say this is a visual poem, you know, just maybe a short poem about heartbreak, the loss of love, rejection, longing. These are themes that exist in a lot of my work. So if you have any comments, suggestions, critiques, please leave them below. And thank you for joining me.